Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming back and joining me today on Next on the Tee. We are brought to you today by the great folks over at the French Lick Resort, the Bobby Jones Company, Frogger Golf, and our friends over at Orange Whip, makers of the Orange Whip Trainer. And folks, if you haven't tried out the Orange Whip and you're looking for a great way to limber up before your rounds or to improve your club head speed or really just keep your swing intact this winter, then you need to go check out the Orange Whip. Folks, there isn't a better way, really, to loosen up and get prepared for your round than by swinging the Orange Whip. My father, 73 years old, folks, plays 5 days a week. He's using the Orange Whip to loosen up before his rounds. It's helping me stay loose this winter, also improving my club head speed. Take a look at what a great training aid it is, and I wouldn't say that if I wasn't using it myself. Go online to see for yourself how great it is at orangewhiptrainer.com. Please also check out our friends over at the Bobby Jones Company and their great winter apparel. Go to bobbyjones.com to check out their great styles and super soft shirts and sweaters. They're going to keep you both looking good and feeling good, whether you're in the office or out on the golf course. Plus, while you're there, you can watch playing lessons from Bobby Jones himself. And, folks, many of those lessons still hold true to today. Go to bobbyjones.com to see for yourself how great their apparel truly is. I'm your host, Chris-Mascaro, and this morning I'm excited to share two really great guests with you. First up, I'll be joined by PGA Hall of Famer Mr. David Graham, and it's been a while since I've had the privilege of spending some time with David. Since we last spoke, he's been inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, so we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll look back, 25 years to when, he was inducted into the Australian Sports Hall of Fame as well. So we'll talk about all of that, plus his wins at the 1979 PGA Championship and the 1981 U.S. Open, plus a whole lot more when he joins me in just a few minutes. Following David, I'll get a return visit from PGA Pro and broadcaster for Sirius XM's PGA channel, Paul-Stankowski. Paul is broadcasting this week from the Sony Open, an event he won back in 1997. I'll get his thoughts again on the 2017 golf season, so we'll look ahead to that. Plus, Paul is also a big Alabama and Dallas Cowboys sports fan as well, so we'll talk about that, plus a whole lot more when he joins me a little bit later on in this half hour. So it's going to be an informative, fun show this morning. I'm so glad that you're here to take the journey with me over the next hour or so. And like I mentioned a moment ago, we're sponsored by the French Lick Resort, which is an absolutely spectacular place. Their Pete Dye and Donald Ross designed courses were ranked number 1 and number 2 in the state of Indiana by Golf Week. It was the site of last year's Senior PGA Championship. They recently hosted the LPGA Legends Championship as well. Go to FrenchLick.com to see for yourself how great a place it is and to book your stay. And every single week here, folks, on Next on the Tee, we like to kick off the show by saluting the brave men and women serving to every branch of our military who are tuning in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We want to thank all of you for the daily sacrifices that you and your families are making to protect our freedoms and our liberties. We also want to thank our veterans out there for all that you and your families have done for us over the years. It's through all of your strength and your efforts that our way of life continues to be possible. Folks, if you happen to see a member of our military when you're out and about, whether you're in the grocery store, at a restaurant, in the airport, wherever you might be, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our true heroes. Our sincere thanks as well to Sean Cruz and all the wonderful folks at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It is such an honor for us to have Next on the Tee be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. And I want to continue to remind our veterans out there, be sure to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org. You hear me talking about it every single week here on Next on the Tee. It's a great site with news and articles and a wealth of information specifically geared towards our veterans out there that I'm sure you're going to find both interesting and beneficial to you. Again, globalvoiceforveterans.org. And I also want to send out a big thank you to our really good friends over at Podbean for making Next on the Tee and our sister show on the football side, Thursday Night Tailgate, regularly featured podcast on their website and their mobile app. You can see us featured on their homepage and in their sports and recreation section. We really appreciate their support and what they're doing to promote our shows. It means a great deal to us. If you're listening to this show as a podcast, well, we hope you're doing it on the Podbean podcast app. And on their app, you can get instant updates every time we publish a new episode. It's free. It's got a lot of great features to let you easily discover, listen, and even publish a podcast for yourself. Whether you use an Android or an iPhone, Podbean is the app for your podcasting needs. Get the app now on Google Play or on the Apple App Store so you can enjoy your favorite podcasts across all genres. And we hope two of them our Next on the Tee and Thursday night tailgate. Again, you can find it online at podbean.com. All right, now back with me on the French Lick Resort guest line is PGA Hall of Famer David Graham. Let me give you some background on David. He's from Windsor, Australia. He turned pro at a very young age, which we'll talk about, here in a moment. He won 38 times as a professional on 6 different continents. He's achieved, that achievement, winning on 6 continents, right? Only a few other players have ever done that. Gary Player, Hale Irwin, Bernard Langer, and Laura Davies. He won 2 major championships, the 1979 PGA Championship and the 1981 U.S. Open. Teamed with Bruce Devlin to win the 1970 World Cup of Golf. He was a member of Australia's back-to-back championship teams in the Dunhill Cup in 1985 and 1986. 1988, he was a member of the Order of Australia, which is an order of chivalry given out in that wonderful country. In 1990, he was inducted into the Australian Sports Hall of Fame, and in 2015, he was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame. And I'm truly honored to have him back with me and Next on the Tee this morning. Good morning, David. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Good morning, Chris. Nice to be back again. Thanks for having me.
So, David, curious, we haven't caught up in a while. Are you back in? Are you up in your home in Montana now?
No. I'm in my home in Dallas right now. Thank you. I'm still here for the Christmas holidays and everything with the grandchildren. So, and besides that, it's about 15 degrees below zero in Montana. So that's kind of not golfing weather.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
So, David, like I mentioned, it's been a little while since we last spoke, and I wanted to kind of talk through some things that have happened in your life since then. Right. First of all, you got inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame finally back in July of 2015. Something that I've been wondering about for years, why it hadn't happened up to that point. But what was it like for you when that call finally came through to you and you found out that you were going to be inducted?
Well, obviously, I was very excited because I had always wanted to be in the Hall of Fame. It's the pinnacle of one's career, and I was very fortunate. I had some wonderful support from Gary Player and Arnold Palmer, to name a couple of people. And fortunately, I think, too, Commissioner Fincham realized that there was, not just for me, but maybe other players as well, a little bit of a shortcoming in the process. So Tim Fincham restructured the entire qualification requirements for the Hall, and then once he did that, then I became kind of automatically able to get in the Hall. So it was a very good experience. It was in St. Andrews. Fincham had decided to take the induction ceremonies around the world rather than just leave it in Florida. And for the new inductees this year, it'll be done during the President's Cup in New York. So it'll only be every 2 years now and not every 1 year. So, it is the World Golf Hall of Fame. So it's nice to know that some of these induction ceremonies will be taken around the globe.
And David, if we go back 25 years, right? Your country recognized you as one of the its greatest athletes, inducting you into the Australian Sports Hall of Fame. What was it like getting up on that stage and being recognized by your country as one of its greatest sports athletes?
Well, any time you get an award of recognition for your accomplishments, it's always a great honor. So I was fortunate that I won those 2 majors right next together, and they put me pretty much straight into the Hall of Fame in Australia, which was a great honor. So I've been very blessed. But those kind of honors are, just kind of the icing on the cake for what you accomplish, which is a great thrill to be able to get them.
And David, speaking about, what you've accomplished, kind of looking back over the course of your playing career, 1970, what a heck of a year that was for you internationally.
Yeah.
You won the Tasmanian Open, the Victorian Open, the Thailand Open, the French Open, the World Cup then with Bruce Devlin. Yeah. What a heck of a year for you.
Well, that really was the starting point of my career, because I had played in those tournaments in Asia and Australia, and it really, at that particular level of golf in those days, it proved to me that, I could play of a skill to win. And through being able to do that, it enticed me to come to the United States, try and get my tour card. And all of the top players that were playing then wanted to come to the United States. It was the only really established tour in the world. The rest of them were kind of just in their very infant stages. So it proved that I could play a little bit. So my wife and I decided to pack up and come to the United States. And, 46 or 47 years later, we're still here.
And to that end, David, we see a different style of golf. When you look at how it's played here in the States, and then when we watch how it's played over, when the Open Championship comes every year, we see a different, the link style, obviously very different terrain and that sort of thing. When you first came to the U.S. to play, whether it's weather or terrain, was it different than what you were used to playing over in Australia?
Well, it was, and I'd say a lot of difference. Number one, the golf ball that I learned to play with was a different size. The American-sized ball was 1.68 in diameter, and the English ball or the Australian ball was 1.62. So you used to be able to play international golf and use either size golf ball, where in the United States you had to only play the one size golf ball. So that in itself was a transition, but it didn't take me very long either to go play my first Masters tournament, and I realized very quickly that I did not have the ball trajectory that was conducive to playing the type of courses here. So I had to kind of rebuild my swing a little bit and learn to get a much higher trajectory so that the downward track of the golf ball would stop when it landed on the green. So I went from standing a long way away from the ball, hitting these big hooks, to trying to hit a much higher, and most of the time high draws, and a lot of times high fades, so that you could attack the angles of the hole locations and stuff. So it's a very different game. But now the ball is so consistent that the young European players they don't even know that there's used to be a small ball. So it was different then, but it's not as much of a change for the players today.
And as you talk about having to go through a swing change, that's no small task to go, try to change your ball flight, your swing, your setup, and all that sort of thing. How long did it take for you to make that adjustment, and how difficult was it?
Well, it wasn't that difficult because I was so pig-headed that I was determined that I was going to do it. And it took about a year, all told. I changed the lie of my clubs. I changed the distance that I stood away from the ball, got my swing on a more upright plane so that the club face would stay on the target line for a longer period so that there wasn't as much release of the toe of the club over the ball. So it took a little while, but one of the great lessons I had was in Lost Tree Village in Palm Beach with Jack Nicklaus, where he and I were on the range hitting some balls, and he was testing some new clubs, and I just made a comment one time standing there. I said, "My gosh, you hit the ball high." And he said, "Well, that's one of the problems with you. You hit the ball too low." So we got into a conversation, and he took me out onto the golf course, and he stuck me behind a tree. And he said, "Now, when you learn to hit this club over that tree, you'll get a much better ball flight." So that's kind of how it all started. And Bruce Devlin told me for a year and a half that I had much too flat a swing, too strong a left hand, and I flicked the toe over too much. So it took a little while, but it all paid off, thank goodness.
As you mentioned, Bruce Devlin, back when you first came, here, there were, the Ryder Cup didn't include the Europeans, and there was no President's Cup back then. But you and Bruce Devlin, you teamed to win the World Cup, a couple of times. So, talk about, was that the opportunity for you guys to show, guess what, Australians can play this game at a high level too?
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate in some ways to get into the first World Cup because it was in Buenos Aires, and most of the Australian players were still obviously living in Australia. The only players that were really U.S. side by then was Bruce Crampton and Bruce Devlin. And Bruce Devlin had said that he would play in the World Cup, and then there was a trickle-down effect, actually, that Bruce Crampton said, no, I'm not going that far. And Peter Thompson said, I've already done it 10 times, I'm not doing it. And Kel Nagel said, no, I'm not traveling that great a distance and everything. And kind of trickled down to where somebody said, well, how about this young kid Graham? And it was then asked of Bruce Devlin, would he be willing to play with a young up-and-coming player? And Bruce, being the kind of gentleman that he is, said, oh, absolutely, I'll play with David. So I went down there, and the first time that we had really spent a lot of time together, and we finished up winning by 19 strokes, which was quite a remarkable achievement, especially when you think that, I think Dave Stockton and Lee Trevino were the American team, so there was some pretty formidable teams down there. So that was really the start of a lengthy friendship and a start of my career. That led to being invited to Augusta and then moving on and getting a tour card and stuff like that. So it was an amazing time in my life.
And David, we place so much emphasis on the majors, and you having won 2 majors, but you won your country's national championship, the Australian Open, in 1977, after having come very close in 1972. When you look at how we look at majors, and like I say, the value that we place on majors for somebody's career, but then your national championship, how does that compare to the 2 majors that you won, having won it for like I say, your country's national championship?
Yeah, well, interestingly, in those days, the Australian Open was nearly kind of considered the 5th major because it always attracted a lot of top players, especially Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player. And then Bruce Devlin was very patriotic, so he would come home and stuff like that. The year that I won was on a golf course called the Australian Golf Club that Jack Nicklaus had just redesigned, and he had really converted the golf course from a really linksy-style golf course to a much more American-style golf course. And, of course, the locals in those days thought it was too difficult because they hadn't seen anything like that. But I think every player, it doesn't matter what country you're from, you want to win your national championship. And I just happened to win mine on a golf course that was considered very difficult against a very elite field in those particular years of playing that championship. But I'm also pleased that the tournament has kind of been resurrected a little bit. And it kind of went in the dump a little bit because of sponsorship issues and television issues. But Jordan Spieth, to his credit, has really resurrected the success of the Australian Open in the last 3 years. He went down there, he won it after he'd won majors. He went back the next year and finished second, and he went back again last year and won again. So he has really sparked the success of that particular tournament. So I'm really proud of him for being young and being so successful, but also being prepared to take golf globally like his predecessors did.
And being that you're down there in Dallas now, have you had an opportunity to spend some time with Jordan?
I've met him a couple of times. I've not spent any time with him. He came out to my club and brought some guests, and I hosted him which was really enjoyable. But he's working with AT&T on a new golf course that they've built in the south part of Dallas, and they're now going to move the Byron Nelson Golf Classic to it. So with his playing schedule and his sponsor commitments, he's a busy young fellow.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So, David, let's spend a little bit of time kind of talking about the majors that you won. In '79, you win the PGA Championship at Oakland Hills, just outside of Detroit, up there in a playoff over Ben Crenshaw. It was a struggle for you towards the end of that tournament, on 18 and then on into an amazing playoff. Take us through that tournament.
Well, I've often always thought that my career and my life completely changed that day because I have bear witness to people that have unfortunately collapsed in the last leg of major championships and never been able to really resurrect their golf game. And I was chuffing along pretty good at Oakland Hills. I was 9 under par on that course that Hogan called the Monster, and I made a careless double bogey on the last hole through poor choice and through a lot of nerves. And, then I beat Ben Crenshaw. Well, Ben Crenshaw was just really the new up-and-coming young superstar, and I was fortunate to win because I made a long putt on number 1, I made a long putt on number 2, and then I birdied the third hole to win. So I've often reflected on what would have happened to my career if I had double bogeyed the last hole and lost the tournament. Would I have ever really gone on to win, say, a U.S. Open? And I'm doubtful that I would have been able to do that, even as committed as I was to playing the game. But so I was fortunate that I won that, and I think because I won that tournament, that was able to take me to the next level and win a U.S. Open. So I was very fortunate to have that circumstances go my way. And Ben and I have talked about it. We've done a lot of interviews together and PR deals together. And, nothing pleases me more than seeing the way that he's handled the adversity of losing that and then coming back and winning 2 Masters championships and stuff. So it was a great tribute to him to have that happen to him and then finish up with the career that he had, because sometimes when you lose majors, you never, you just remember the Frenchman at the British Open. I mean, that's a devastating thing for somebody to go through.
Yes, and to that end, David, talk about, your mental approach, because to your point, it could have all gone south right after the 18th, but somehow you were able to rally yourself and get yourself back into it.
Yeah, I've tried to get into the thought process of why and how and everything, and the only thing I can come up with was that it was meant to be, that there was a higher power taking care of me that day. That's the only answer I can realistically come up with. I can't say that I hit 2 good drives, and it was just because I was really in a place I'd never been before, physically and mentally. So I was very fortunate to win, and I'm still fortunate to even think about that. In fact, not too long ago, I went back to Oakland Hills. They made me an honorary member there, and I walked out onto that 18th green, and I went to every spot where I'd played that hole, and I thought, oh, my goodness, I was all over the place. But anyway, as I said, it worked out.
So, David, it's interesting to me to look at, the PGA Championship back then in '79 to what it is today, right? Your winning check was $60,000. Last year, Jimmy Walker won $1.8 million. Could you have ever imagined that purses for golf tournaments would get to this level?
Well, I don't think anybody ever imagined it, but it's incredible. It shows you how popular golf is. It shows you how sponsors want to be involved in golf because of the lack of controversy with the people that play it, and the ability of a commissioner to tell some of the players to disappear for 3 months and come back with a better sample and stuff. So the game's got some great young players in it, and golf. If you look at the history of the game, you look at I don't know where you start. Do you start with Bobby Jones, or do you start with Byron Nelson, or do you start with Sam Snead, or Hogan, or Nicklaus, or Palmer, or Player, or Trevino? Or it's always had really the best golfers have always been really, really ethical people, and with one little exception, you look at Tiger Woods. I mean, he carried the banner for golf for nearly 20 years. And I mean, that's an incredible amount of time to be at the top of your business. And then, then all of a sudden, bang, here comes Dustin Johnson and Jason Day and Rory McIlroy and everything. So the game's just got younger, healthier, more skilled people in it. And sponsors want to be a part of that.
Moving on and looking at your 1981 U.S. Open victory at Merion, you trailing by 3 shots heading into the final round, and then you really put on a golf clinic. After missing the first fairway, you hit the next 17, you hit all 18 greens, in regulation, and you turned a 3-shot deficit into a 3-shot victory. I read that Ben Hogan actually called you after that round and said it was one of the finest rounds of golf that he had ever seen. What was it like when that call came through?
Oh, it was exciting. Well, I'd known him. Bruce Devlin and Mr. Hogan were very good friends, and in those days, the Hogan Company manufactured a golf shaft called the Apex, and it was the first line of lightweight steel shafts to ever be produced, and I played that shaft, so I used to go up there quite frequently and raid the shaft bin and get some shafts. But Mr. Hogan was always very nice to me. He was I never knew him when he was at the top of his career and stuff, so I never got to see him play at all, especially, in his career. But he was, for some reason, he took a liking to me, and I went up there several times and had lunch with him, and he always took a great deal of delight in professional golfers coming into his office and shaking his hand and talking about equipment and clubs and new golf balls and where the game had gone from where he was to where it was in those days and everything. So, yeah, he was terrific to me. And when he called me and told me that and invited me up to lunch, I said, how about tomorrow? And he said, tomorrow works. Meet me at Shady Oaks and I'll buy you lunch. So I went up there. Yeah, that's a true story.
Wow. So just a couple more before we let you go, David. You had a bout with congestive heart failure back in 2004, which you successfully, obviously, battled through. My next guest, Paul Stankowski, has had some issues related to his heart, at an early age that he battled through last year. Another good friend, Sean McKeel, has had some heart issues as well. How are you doing now? And is there any advice that you can share with our listeners who may be, going through something similar?
Well, congestive heart failure is not a pleasant thing to have, obviously, anything relative to your heart. The problem is that there's no real indicators that you're going to get it. I thought I was pretty healthy. I had started working out in the wintertime. I was maybe in the best physical shape that I'd ever been in, and I'd never had any issues at all. And then one day in Massachusetts, I just collapsed, and they took me to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with, 2 or 3 issues. The next minute I took retirement because I couldn't play golf anymore. I didn't play for about 5 years, but they have just such great knowledge today, and so many great doctors and such good medication and everything. And I've now got an implant in my chest, which is a new state-of-the-art gadget that helps my heart stay at one level and everything. So if I listen to my body and I don't exert myself too much, then I do pretty well. And I've watched, my health as well as I can. But any heart issues, not any fun to go through. But mine is not surgically repairable, so I just have to take one day at a time. And it's not I don't need stents, and my arteries are all open. I just have a bad ticker, and it's just up to me to try and take care of it as much as I can. So
get us up to date. What are you doing now?
Well, not much, actually. I spend most of my time at my club here in Dallas BSing with Lee Trevino, which is a nearly everyday occurrence, which makes my wife happy because it gets me out of the house. He and I, we still play the greats of golf. We play in Minneapolis for 3M, and we go down to Houston and play in the Insperity tournament and those two things. We do some outings, a little bit of corporate deal. I've done some work with President W. Bush with Wounded Warriors, which is a very gratifying thing for me to do.
Yes.
And when he's in town, he and I play a lot of golf, which is a real treat to be able to play with a former president. So, I stay busy to a point, but I could, would I like to be busier? Most likely, but, not too many people want a 70-year-old broken down old golf pro, so it's okay. It's,
Well, you're always welcome on this show. I could, anytime you get to speak to a guy like David Graham.
Well, I'm sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I'm just getting over a pretty bad cold, so I'm a little raspy this morning.
Oh, no worries at all. Fantastic. David, is there a way for our listeners at all to stay up to date with anything that you're doing, or whether it's online or on social media?
No, well, I'm on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook. I have a website. It's just davidgrahamgolfer.com. I don't post a lot of stuff. I'm not really into social media, and I do look at Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn a little bit. I get on there and talk with some people, but I'm not addicted to that sort of thing. So I kind of like to stay under the radar, to be honest with you.
Well, David, it's always a huge thrill for me to get to spend some time with you. I thank you for coming back and giving me your time this morning and to come back on the show. I hope you'll do it again sometime soon. Love to get more of your stories and your insights.
All right, Chris. Well, you have a good day, and tell Paul-Stankowski I said hi, okay?
Absolutely will do that. Thank you very much. All the best to you and your family, David.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
That is PGA Hall of Famer David Graham. What a lot of fun. Boy, anytime you get an opportunity to spend some time with a legend like David, it's certainly a huge thrill. Hopefully we get to have him back on the show again real soon. All right, before I get to my next guest, Paul Stankowski, first of all, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at the Bobby Jones Company. Folks, cold, damp, windy days, right? Game changers out there when you're trying to get out there on the golf course. But you can beat the odds with Bobby Jones layers, from their quarter-zip pullover and super soft sweaters, to all of their wonderful apparel. Check them out online at bobbyjones.com. And while you're on that site, click on the equipment link to see the great line of drivers, fairway woods, and hybrids designed by one of the game's most influential equipment designers, Mr. Jesse Ortiz. And, Jesse, like his father Lou, and even Bobby Jones himself, right? Jesse has a passion for the game of golf and club design as well. You remember his great tri-metal fairway woods from his days over at Olimar. Well, now he's putting his creativity and his innovative design to work, creating great golf equipment for the Bobby Jones Company. Check it out online by going to the equipment tab on bobbyjones.com, or straight to it by going to bobbyjonesclubs.com. And if you're looking for some great golf accessories, folks, check out our friends over at Frogger Golf. What a wonderful array of products that they have, like their amphibian towel, right? Won the best new product at the PGA Merchandise Show back in 2009, or their new catch latch technology that easily and securely lets you attach and release your amphibian towel, your Brush Pro cleaner, or any other of your golf accessories. They have so many really great things. You can find them online at froggergolf.com. A lot of great golf accessories for under $20, and their golf bags, folks, are tremendous. I'm using one now. They're on sale right now. Typically, they're $169.99. Well, they're taking $100 off of that, and you can get one for $69.99 now. So a lot of great storage compartments, and the catchless technology is built right into their golf bag, so it's really great stuff. Check them out online at froggergolf.com. We'll get to Paul Stankowski right on the other side of this station identification.
You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, heard around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with me and making his 8th appearance on the French Lick Resort guest line is one of my favorite all-time guests, PGA pro and broadcaster Paul Stankowski. Let me give you a little background on Paul. He's from Oxnard, California, started playing golf at the age of 8, attended the University of Texas at El Paso, where he was a 3-time All-American and won the Western Athletic Conference Championship back in 1990, turned pro the following year in 91, got his first pro victory at the 1996 Nike Louisiana Open. He backed that up by winning the very next week on the PGA Tour at the Bell South Classic here in Atlanta, becoming the only golfer in history to win on what's now the Web.com Tour and then the PGA Tour in back-to-back weeks. In all, Paul has 7 professional victories, 31 top 10 finishes, including winning the Hawaiian Open in 1997, right, the site of this week's golf tournament. And I'm very thankful and excited to have Paul back with me and Next on the Tee this morning. Happy New Year, Paul. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Happy New Year to you too, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
So, Paul, before we start, into all the golf stuff, as you might have heard, I was talking to David Graham a moment ago, and he had some coronary issues back in 2004. We know you had some very scary health issues last year. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. And I did listen to the tail end of your interview with David, and what a sweet man he is, and was always really good to me during my career. So I'm a big fan of David Graham, and but I'm feeling good. I was 210 pounds on May 4th when I had my episode, and a couple weeks ago I dropped below 190, and my goal was 189.999, and I got there. So I'm now back at like 191. So I've got I want to be under 190. I feel really good. Just eliminated some of the things that like sugars and white breads and that type of stuff from my diet. And I feel really good, and my levels are good, my heart's good. So I'm grateful for the type of heart attack I had, which according to my doctor was the good kind. So whatever that means, but no, I'm grateful.
Has that event changed anything for you, Paul, your perspective at all? I know you have a very strong Christian faith. Did any of that change, outside of your diet, of course, but did anything like that change, your life at all?
No. I mean, it was an eye-opener just personally, because we all know that we're going to die at some point, right? I mean, that's what happens. You're born, you live, and you die. And so we just don't know when, and we think we're invincible, and when all of a sudden you're in the hospital and they're going to go through your vein and put a stent in to open up an artery that was 99% blocked, and that's a bit scary. Just the thought that, okay, well, if this heart thing went a little bit worse, I may not be here. So it's an eye opener. Like, okay, well, what led me to this road? Was it my diet? Was it my lack of exercise? Was it, job stress? Was it, you think about all those things and go, okay, what of those are really important in the grand scheme of things? And, do I need to eat ice cream and peanut butter at 9:00 at night? Is that a good thing for me? Do I need to have, that second helping of really good, delicious French fries? And so those are the things that, or the carrot cake. And it's funny, when I went back and we were reconciling our bank account and checkbook and all that kind of stuff from last week. And we went back and I looked at May when I was on the road doing the tournament for New Orleans. And I looked at where I had eaten that week, and it cracked me up. I mean, it was Italian. It was pizza. 3 nights, Fuddruckers on my airport on the way out. I mean, it was terrible. No wonder I had a heart attack.
So, Paul, I also know you're a big Alabama football fan. So last Monday night couldn't have been very good for your heart. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it's disappointing. But the older I get, the more kind of objective I get, and I watch the game, and obviously I'm a huge fan, and I'm a huge sports panicker. Like I always fear that my team's going to lose. It's just the way I am, the way I'm wired. My son's different. He's like, no, I got confidence, Dad. I'm like, I'm glad one of us does, buddy. But so I was on the road down in Houston for the day that night, so I'm watching the game, and I watched the first half with some buddies in the lobby of the hotel, and then the second half, I went up to the room, and, I fell asleep early in the fourth quarter, and then I woke up again with like 3 minutes to go, 4 minutes ago maybe, and Alabama was down. And I'm like, oh, crud. All right. So I watched them, go down and score way too quick, in my opinion. And then with 2 minutes ago, here comes the drive. And inside of a minute, it was pretty apparent that it was going to come down to the last play, probably, win or lose, whether it was whether we're going to tie it up or score a touchdown, or Alabama was going to come up big on defense. And I couldn't help but smile. I'm sitting in my room watching the last minute of the game, obviously really wanting Alabama to win. It's not going to change my life if they do, but I'm a fan, right? And it actually probably cost me money because I'd have to buy the T-shirt and the hat. But so here I am watching it, and all I'm doing is smiling because I'm a sports fan. I love big moments, and that was the biggest moment on the biggest stage for these college kids, and it was great, and it was a pick. There were a couple of them, but it was a great play, and you know what, the team, nobody lost that game. time just ran out for one team, and there wasn't enough time for one team, and there was just enough time for the other, and that's the way it works. What a spectacular national championship game. It was fun to watch, and there again, I was bummed for a second. My son probably had a hard time going to sleep that night because he lives and breathes Alabama football and Dallas Cowboys football. So we got a big one coming up tomorrow. But it was great, great game. Terribly sad ending for me and for all Alabama fans, but good for Dabo Swinney. There's always a team that's excited, and both teams worked their butts off all year. They're both well coached, and what a sweet moment for Dabo as a former Alabama player, maybe future coach.
Right. And now you're there doing the Sony Open, Paul. Does watching Justin Thomas's success, a guy who played his college golf at the University of Alabama, he's got 2 wins already this season. On Thursday, he becomes the youngest player by far to shoot 59, and at an event that you won in 1997, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But you're broadcasting that event this week for Sirius XM's PGA channel. Justin Thomas, former Alabama player, now has a 36-hole record by backing up his 59 with a 64 yesterday. Does that help soften the blow, seeing an Alabama golfer playing so well, or would it have to be a UTEP guy to make it better for you?
No, it's great. Justin's a great player, and he played on a great national championship team in Alabama under Coach J.C. Well, and dear friend of mine, and also a great coach. Their golf program had some great success over the last 10 years or so, and but this kid is good. He's little, but he moves it, and just watching him, his tee shot yesterday on number 13 was it was crazy to watch. Here's this kid, 150 pounds maybe, taking it up and over these trees, sending it at probably a 15-degree launch angle, left nothing in the bag whatsoever, and hits it 69 yards from the pin, where his playing competitors are 160 yards from the pin. And what he can do with the golf ball, there's a few guys out there that can do that. But no, they're the size of Bubba Watson. They're bigger guys. He's a little guy, 5 whatever and 100 and whatever. So that aside, yes, he's long, but he's also just a great player. He's got all the tools. When he made his putt for 59 on Thursday, I'm sure you watched it. The Jordan Spieth reacted 10 times more excited than Justin did, and he looked like. One, he was a little bit phased, maybe a little bit embarrassed, but kind of like ho-hum, like he's done that before, which is pretty funny because obviously not many people have. But it is fun to watch guys like him. The tour's chock full of young players. And then there's a few older guys in the mix too, which is kind of fun. See Vijay Singh actually, still getting after it. Fred Funk made the cut, and Freddie's got to be close to 60. So golf's a great sport. I think it's in a great place right now. There's a lot of young, talented players. We got Tiger Woods, making a comeback, and golly, I hope that he can play. He can return to some of the greatness that he used to have. I'd love to see him battling some of these young guys toe to toe down the stretch of a major championship here soon, hopefully in April. And it's an interesting time. Golf has changed considerably from when I came out in 1994, and my win there in '96 was, or '97 was a lot of fun. But I think I shot 17 under par, I think, and he's done that in 2 days. And
to that end, right? Again, you win that Hawaiian Open back in '97, and now you get to broadcast that event every week. And just to give people some background, when you won it, right? You won it in a playoff over Jim Furyk and Mike Reed. You had to make a 30-foot putt on the third playoff hole just to extend the playoff, because if that doesn't go in, Jim Furyk ends up winning the golf tournament. Then on the fourth playoff hole, which was the par 5 18th, and you were just off the green in two, you two-putt to birdie to win it. But it's got to bring back some good memories. Every year it comes down, to this tournament. This, obviously has been going on for many, many years, but it comes around every year. It's got to make you feel good to be able to look back on those memories, and then to get to broadcast that event on top of it.
Yeah, it definitely great memories, and I'm thankful that they're still in my brain. That I do still remember. I remember the playoff well. I remember watching Jim Furyk 4-putt the 15th hole, playing right in front of me to open the door for us, and it was a lot of fun, and it's great to get to call the event as well, and I'm reliving some of the shots that I hit down the stretch in my head while watching these guys. And it's a different golf course than when we played. It was a par 72 back then, 70 now, but it's in great shape, and the weather they've had the first 2 days has been spectacular. So I am grateful for the career I had, which my great golf really spanned 2 years out of the 20 that I played, but I stuck around a long time and had some fun, had a few chances every year to do something really cool, but it was great. It's great to look back and see that I played against some of the greats of the game and got to play alongside Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and Jim Furyk, the new captain, Ryder Cup captain, and got paired with Nicklaus and played a skins game with Nicholas Watson and Gary Player and Fred Couple. It's like all the things I dreamt of doing when I was a kid, I got to do, with the exception of winning a major championship. But I'm very thankful, and now to be on this side of the ropes and on the other side of a microphone, it's different. I don't think I ever envisioned being in this position as a business owner and doing radio for tournaments, but it's cool, man. I'm every day I wake up, I get an opportunity to do something cool, and I'm grateful.
Paul, a couple more before we let you go, and you talked about Tiger Woods a moment ago, and we've seen Tiger, right, obviously battling a lot of injuries, including a back injury now, for years. Jason Day feels like he's one bad swing from going down with a back problem. Today I read, Rory McIlroy hurt his back over in the South African Open. All three of those guys lash at the ball so hard, so fast, to drive it, 350 or whatever, we've seen them drive it even further than that. Do you think, do they need to kind of dial their swing back if they want to have longevity in the game, or to continue? You talk about Tiger coming back and playing, really well, and the hope for that. But these two guys are, Rory and Jason, young guys, and are already having back problems.
It's a good question. Mickelson has swung really hard for a long time, right? Really long swing. John Daly as well. Phil's got a form of arthritis, but that's not anything that he did to himself. So, he never seems to be hurt physically. Daly, I don't think he's missed a round of golf due to injury, anyway. And so they're Jim Furyk had wrist injuries. He had wrist surgery, but he's still going at it. And so there's a lot of guys that went at it real strong. What you don't see are a lot of really beefed up golfers that aren't hurt, and that's interesting. There's no secret that Tiger is pretty huge, and Rory is ripped, and Jason, his body's changed, and I don't know. I do know that golf is terrible for the body, and the harder you torque at something, the spine is little, right? And it's not. There's a lot that can go wrong there, knees and wrists, and but it's a risk I'm sure they're willing to take. Being able to generate that club head speed not only helps in driving the golf ball a long way, or hitting a 9-iron 170 yards, but it's the ability to muscle it out of rough as well. They're able to get at pins that guys like me or the shorter hitters aren't, and consequently, that makes golf a little easier for those guys. Let alone the talent they have is a lot greater than others. So I don't know. I mean, injuries happen to everybody at some point. At some point, the body will say enough, right? That's it. Whether you're 40 or 60 or 70, you got guys on the Champions Tour that are still playing in their 60s, and I think Hale Irwin's still playing, for crying out loud. And and playing well. So it's nobody knows when the tissues are going to have some issues, if you will, and you hope it doesn't happen for a long time. And I didn't foresee me having 5 surgeries in a 6-year stretch either, or a 5-year stretch, but it happened, and golf's hard on the body. We're not getting pounded like football players are, and we don't have to deal with concussions unless you're Woody Austin and you hit yourself in the head. But those are some issues there that we've got to, we just got to take care of ourselves. And I think they're doing the right thing by working out and getting stronger they're doing the right thing from stability standpoint, to making sure all the little muscles in their body, the stabilizers are working properly and the muscles are strong and hopefully able to support, the joints and tendons and ligaments and all those other things that I know very little about.
You talked about being a business owner briefly a moment ago, and your company, Francis Edward, sells some amazing exotic leather goods, including some really cool not golf, but just belts in general, which are a very cool thing that we see a lot of players wearing now out on tour and around and about. Talk about what your company does.
Yeah, exactly that. We do custom exotic belts. And Italian calfskin and some bison, but we do shark and ostrich leg and anaconda and python and crocodile and alligator, different stitch options. And the thing that's cool about our company is that you can custom create something. So whatever your price point is, whether it's an Italian calfskin price point all the way up to an alligator price point, we have multiple color of skins, in some different skin types up to 15, 17 different colors. And from purples to greens to reds to yellows to white, black, cognac, whatever you want for the most part is there. And we do, up to 20 different stitch options. And so if you went to Alabama and you want some sort of a darkish red, crimson colored, with gray stitch and white edge or something, we can do it. Or LSU, little purple and gold. Or even we just did a belt the other day for a Clemson fan. It was an orange crocodile with white hand stitching and a purple edge just for that little accent. And I mean, it's something that, I wouldn't wear on a daily basis, but you know what, on game day, get creative, get funky. And that's what we encourage our customer to do. And they love the process.
So one more before we let you go. You talked about earlier being a Dallas Cowboy fan. So, you got a big game coming up tomorrow against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. How do you feel?
Well, I'm panicking, as always. But you know what? I was really hoping that they would play the Giants, and solely because there's no way they're losing 3 games to the Giants in one season. At least that was my thought. The other 2 games could have gone either way. They lose by combined 4 points in 2 games. But you know what? There's always a changing of the guard, right? And Aaron Rodgers is a great football player and has been a great quarterback. And, the word is, that no rookie, rookie can't do it, right? And at Dak Prescott, I don't think he's a magnificent quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's done a great job this year leading the Cowboys to their record. But I don't see him doing anything wrong. I see Zeke going off, and I think the Cowboys win. Obviously I'm a fan. I think it's going to be a close game, though. It's going to be exciting, but we're going to see something really cool happen at the end. And Dallas Cowboys they're going to go all the way, my friend. They're going all the way.
Something magical is going to happen at the end. Hopefully this time you're on the winning end of that and not on the heartbreak end of it. So good luck. Good luck tomorrow, Paul. Thank you so much for coming back
Chris,
on the show. Remind our listeners how they can follow you.
Well, on Twitter, I'm at paul-stankowski. The older I get, the less I'm tweeting. But that's there. And then on Facebook, our business is on Twitter at Francis Edward _. And on Facebook, it's Francis Edward USA. And my cell phone is 867-53. No, that's not. That's Jenny. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me on. I love being on your show. You're one of the most prepared interviewers on earth. So I thank you and applaud you for the job you do.
I appreciate that very much, Paul. Thanks for taking time out of your morning. Enjoy the Sony Open. I look forward to, hopefully getting the opportunity to catch up with you again real soon. Good luck tomorrow with your Cowboys. All the best to you and your family, my friend.
Thanks, my friend. You too.
All right, take care, Paul. That is PGA pro and now broadcaster for the PGA channel on Sirius XM, Paul Stankowski. Be sure to check him out as he does the Sony Open this weekend. All right, folks, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. But before we do, we want to continue to remind you about our friend Jim Estes and the great folks over at the Salute Military Golf Association. They are doing so much to help our wounded veterans. Please take a listen to all the great things that they are doing.
The Salute Military Golf Association was created to provide rehabilitative golf experiences to the brave men and women who have been wounded while serving our country. Hi, I'm Jim Estes, PGA Golf Pro and co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association. With my adaptive golf program, we've successfully helped thousands of soldiers in their recovery, both mentally and physically. The SMGA has been providing family-inclusive golf experiences across the country since 2007. To date, the SMGA has equipped more than 1,000 warriors with properly fitted golf clubs and has extended its clinic series to more than 8 chapter and affiliate locations across the U.S. If you are a wounded veteran interested in participating, or if you'd like to learn more about the Salute Military Golf Association and find a chapter closest to you, visit our website at smga.org. We've seen firsthand how impactful golf can be in aiding one's recovery. The Salute Military Golf Association, empowering wounded veterans one fairway at a time. Visit smga.org. That's smga.org.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. They are doing such great things over at the Salute Military Golf Association. Kudos to Jim and his fine staff. To find out more information and how you can get involved, check them out online at smga.org. All right, everyone, my sincere thanks to David Graham and Paul Stankowski for making today's show so much fun for me to be a part of. I had such a good time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Please also check out our sister show on the football side, Thursday Night Tailgate, with me and my co-host Bob Lazzari, our announcer Joe LaGenusa as well, and that show airs live every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stream it live on Blog Talk Radio, but you can find it as a podcast over on Podbean. Again, you heard me talk about Podbean earlier. Great folks. What a great site. What a great app. We can't thank them enough for all of their support over on Podbean. You can also find the show as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, SoundCloud. We're all over the net. Big thanks as well, as you heard me say, or you hear me say every single week here, to our friends on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You can find our show by streaming it over there on armedforcesradionetwork.org. Thursday Night Tailgate, just to remind you, every week we're joined by 5 NFL legends and great folks always on the show. Such great guys sharing their stories and their insights from their playing days and, about today's games as well. Plus, we also highlight 2 players every week doing great things in their communities in our Spotlight on the Positive segment on that show as well. Please check out this show and Thursday Night Tailgate on Facebook. We have 2 we have 2 pages there for you. And please give us a like. That's very important to us as well. You can find this show online. Our website is nextonthetee.net, and we have thursdaynigttailgate.com, and you can stream or download any of our archive episodes from either of those sites as well. Folks, thank you again for choosing to listen to Next on the Tee today. We know you've got a lot of choices for shows and podcasts that you can stream or download. We are so thankful that you're making Next on the Tee and hopefully Thursday Night Tailgate 2 of them. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors, and media members go to tell their stories. Join us same time every Saturday to hear more stories about the game we love from the people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about the great game of golf.